Hi, I'm Kat, and this is our daily tarot. We had two cards pop out for our opening card today. We have the Nine of Cups as well as the Judgment card. So we are in a kind of emotional stew of sorts, looking over this last year and where we've had different emotional experiences. And if you can imagine that if you're sitting with these 9 cups behind you on the counter behind you, each one of those cups has a different experience, and that caused you to feel something this year. And in some ways, we're sitting in this place of review, which makes a lot of sense because we're at the end of the year. We also have this interesting addition that popped out. It kind of flew out when this card came out, which is the Judgment card. And as I've mentioned over the last couple of weeks, because interestingly enough, this card has been popping out a lot, it brings in this energy of rebirth and transformation. Like we're actually being called into something else, called into a different place, which is so very interesting considering what's going on by transit with Pluto, which is what rules this card. Pluto right now has both Venus and Mercury in close proximity to it. Venus is in retrograde. Mercury just passed over it yesterday. So there's this interesting revisiting on how we look at experiences and matters of the heart and how we change our point of view, or how we can maybe look at it in a different perspective. The challenge that we're facing today is the Nine of Wands. So the Nine of Wands is all about feeling like, we're just looking over our shoulder at all of our past mistakes and things that we pulled ourselves into in a lot of different directions. And we may feel a little bit beat up over some of the situations that we went through this year and the results and outcomes of it. Maybe it didn't, we didn't have the outcome that we expected to, or that we were led to believe that it was going to happen. And so this is our challenge as far as this transformation. If we have a very fixed way of seeing things, then it can get in our way of moving through things and seeing what else is there behind that, especially if we're in the midst of beating ourselves up for something. So that can be a challenge. It can kind of be a big hurdle to actually transition over, as if we keep looking at our own mistakes as something to beat ourselves up for. Now, the way that we're going to get through that is the Seven of Cups. So we're back to the cups now, and this is about having some idea of happiness. It's so interesting because we forget. We just truck down the road as we're human beings and grow up, and then we forget how much of what we aspire to want in life is actually some kind of conditioning or some kind of dream, right? Like fairy tales, people kind of, shake their fist at fairy tales a lot because of this idea of happily ever after. But we forget that in the beginning of those stories, there's usually some kind of hardship or something that had to be overcome for people to get there. So it's, how do experiences work on our emotional nature, and what is our experience of things, and what is this idea of happiness, right? Is it something that's external of us? Is it actually like some outcome, or is it the experience of realizing and being part of this world? Like, what is happiness? How do we look at and feel our experience in this world? And so it really is this illusionary thing that we're starting to learn from, that happiness isn't outside of us. Now, the overall outcome for the day is the Seven of Swords. So we have a couple sevens coming in today, being learning cards by them being the number 7 in numerology. And so there, whereas this was, learning emotionally, this is learning mentally. So getting this sense that how we see things is starting to evolve, right? You can see this person is walking away from this tent that there's 2 swords left behind, and they have 5 swords that are in their arms. And so they're walking away from this sense of like good or bad, or black and white, or, this dualistic way of perceiving our experience. Like there's this story about a man, and I'm just summarizing it very briefly, who like his son got thrown off a horse, right? And someone was like, oh, that's such bad luck. And he was like, could be, could not be, right? And then the next day someone came and, you know, wanted to take his kid for like the war, and he couldn't go because he had a broken leg, right? So that it's this whole idea of like, when someone shapes your experience as good or bad, it actually can get in the way a lot of times of realizing that like you're still in the experience. And so this is walking away from that sense of duality of like what's good and what's bad, and realizing that you have your own ability to decide what you want to pick up and how you want to look at a situation and talk about a situation and see a situation, because this is a swords governed card, which is governed by Mercury. It's governed by how we see things, how we talk about things, how we describe things. And so be careful, you know, when you're approaching this new year of, you know, putting limitation in front of you, because I actually see all of this change that's happening in our lives right now is actually creating a beautiful opportunity for all of us to step into something that we've actually been being called to step into for quite a long time. So I send you all a good wish as we move through this transition, and if you need some support, feel free to reach out and we'll schedule some time. Much love to you. Bye.